Hey everyone, welcome to the Jira Admin for Beginners live training. Um, we're asking right now, before we get too far into this, how many custom fields does your Jira instance have? Justin coming in at us with 200. Anybody who can beat 200? I kind of think that 200 is a very, very low number, but can anyone beat 200? I'm very, very curious of how many custom fields your Jira instance has. Because guess what, folks? Today we're going to be talking about custom fields and field configurations. This is going to be a great session. It's going to be very, very tailored to just those specific things, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So let me know. Okay, so numbers are coming in. We got John Funk coming in from Dubai. Dude, if you don't want to share how many custom fields you have, then maybe just let me know where you are tuning in from in the world. We have Chad here at 557. That's a good number. John Funk's got 600 here. That's getting up there. The most I've ever personally seen is 1,500. That is a crazy amount of custom fields, but I guess it all just depends on the size of your Jira. But 1,500 is the biggest one I've seen. Can anybody top 1,500? Let me know in the comments here. Now, while those numbers are pouring in, let me know where you're also tuning in from. We got the Philippines. Luis got 170. Hey, Luis. So I'm actually quite surprised. These are some low numbers. Anything under like 500, in my opinion, is a pretty low number. I think if you've been in your Jira instance for a while, you're probably going to be rocking somewhere closer to 6, 7, 800, maybe close to 1,000 custom fields. So we got Kai here from Germany. Too many custom fields, around 500. Yep, I would say it's about average. So definitely a good amount of custom fields there. So we're going to be talking custom fields. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll talk about the custom fields, and we're also going to talk about field configurations. And you can't have this whole conversation without also talking about screens. So we'll kind of revisit a little bit of our screen discussion from last month. So strap in. Hopefully everybody's excited. If you haven't subscribed to the channel here, highly recommend you take a second here to subscribe to the channel. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just kind of jump into the slides here. So we'll talk custom fields, field configuration schemes. And as I mentioned, you can't really talk about at least custom fields without also talking about screens. So we're going to go back and revisit our screens and get that conversation going. Now, for those of you that are joining and you're seeing a bunch of numbers in the chat, we're asking what's the most amount of custom fields that you have in your Jira instance. So if you want to take a second here, holy moly, hold up, wait a minute. I don't know if this is real or not, but Guyame says he has 7,000 custom fields. So 7,000 is the number to beat. Does anybody have more than 7,000 custom fields in your Jira instance? If you do, let me know. Brian Tito here, he's got almost 5,000 custom fields. So again, just trying to liven up here the conversation. But yeah, I thought 1,500 was a lot. In all my years of being a Jira admin, 7 years of this, 1,500 is the most I've ever seen. So folks hitting over close to 5,000, 7,000, that's a high number. I would expect the average to be right around 500, 600. That's kind of where I'm averaging out at. But let's see what the chat here says. We got Darlene here from Arizona. Good morning, Darlene. And yeah, so let's keep going. All right. So who am I? Why should you care? Why should you listen? So if you've never attended a live streaming, this is like the 10th month that we've been doing this. This is the 10th iteration of this particular training, although I do offer a lot of different trainings for Scrum Masters, for project managers, very soon for marketers. And so there's a lot of trainings that I'm doing here in this live learning platform. So just hello, my name's Alex. I do have a bachelor's in computer engineering, a master's in systems engineering, a couple cybersecurity certifications. I have the ACP 520, and I'm almost done studying for the ACP 120. So I'm hoping to take that in the next few weeks, hopefully on or around Halloween. So on or around the end of the month, if not a little overflow into next month. But I do plan on taking that ACP, and fingers crossed that I can pass. My buddy Roddy, who's a co-host with me here on the Jira Live, the channel that you're tuning in here to watch this live stream, he's taking the test or has taken the test already because he's in Spain at Team 24 Europe. So he's over there. I haven't had a chance to check to see if he passed or not or what's going on with that, but he was definitely getting himself prepared to take the 120 today. And so I'm going to be taking the 120 very, very soon. And then I'll be on to the 620, and then I'll do eventually the 420. And the last certified expert is back. So if you do get all 4 certifications from the ACPs, They are back. Atlassian is bringing that prestigious award back, and then they're also building another one for anybody that takes the ACA. So if you take all those ACAs that are available, there's also kind of like a prestigious award over there as well. So if you haven't considered taking the ACPs or the ACAs, the certified professional or the certified associate that Atlassian offers, highly recommend you take them because they just help add a little bit more glamour to your resume, if you will. So anyways, also just want to let you know, I do run 2 YouTube channels. This is one of them, the Jira Life. So if you haven't subscribed, take a second here, help us hit those subscribing goals. We're about 1,500. So if you can, any subscriptions here will help us just, get closer to that coveted 2,000 there. But I also have my main channel, Ape Tech Tutorials. So if you've ever Googled the Jira problem, you've probably seen one of my videos on Ape Tech. And so I have a ton of videos over there on Ape Tech. Now we have Sean over here. Hi, the Jira Life. Sean, one of our favorite people in the whole wide world. He's tuning in here and checking us out. All right. So with that said, enough of the intro stuff. Make sure you scan that QR code. We are going to be revisiting here at the end of the training, so don't go too far away. But let's just jump into custom fields. So if you've ever attended my trainings, I'm not huge on PowerPoints. That's it with the PowerPoints. That we're kind of done there. We're going to be in Jira. We're going to be looking at Jira, and we're going to be exploring Jira, and we're going to be just going deep into this lecture here within the tool that we love so much. So how do we get to custom fields, and what is a custom field? So let me start with what is a custom field. So Jira ships with a bunch of fields, right? So when you open up a Jira ticket, I'm going to go full screen on this. When you open up a Jira ticket, you have your summary / your title, you have your description, you have things like the assignee, the reporter, the due date, although the due date is a default field. It's not a custom field, but it's kind of hidden. It's not, I kind of wish it would ship automatically visible, but it's not. We have other things like the labels, maybe story points if you're a Scrum team, right? Priority is definitely a custom or a default field that we have. And then over here, we have default fields like original time estimate, time tracking, components, fixed version. These are all default fields. And what that means is that they're just fields that exist within Jira. They ship. So the moment you buy Jira, it comes with those fields. I wouldn't classify them as custom fields, but those fields are available. And you can pull them into your screens and revisit the training from last week to kind of see how to pull fields into your screens. But those are the fields that everybody gets. Everybody across all Jira Cloud gets, regardless of whether you're on premium or standard or enterprise or even on the free version of Jira. Everybody has the fields that I just kind of called out. But if you pay special attention to my screen here, right, especially in this little area, you'll see that Sarah's special field is here. And you're going like, wait, I don't have that in my Jira. Who's Sarah, right? Well, Sarah's a very special person in my life. But aside from that, this is what's called a custom field. And today we're going to deep dive into what custom fields are, because sometimes, not all the time, I always push, right? My preference is whatever you're trying to do in Jira, try to stick to basics, try to stick to the default as much as possible. But every once in a while, you're going to have this like business requirement from a director, an executive, a VP, and they want to see something special. They want to see something that doesn't ship with Jira. They want to capture maybe your organization. Maybe you want to capture like a cost department or something, right? These are these are values and data that is specific to just you and your Jira. And so you're not going to find it inside of Jira out of the box. So fortunately for us, Atlassian gives us this concept of a custom field, and we're allowed to create fields for pretty much whatever we want. And that's what we're going to be covering today. All right. So let me show you how to get to the custom fields. First, you do need to be a Jira admin. If you are not a Jira admin, right? So if you are just a project admin, you're not going to be able to do this. You have to be a Jira admin, an administrator, or a site admin, some more powerful admin to be able to do this. But if you click on this little gear over here, and then you go down to issues, you will then basically be taken to Jira's global admin settings. And on the left-hand side, there's this custom fields. Now, if I had a penny for every time that I clicked on custom fields, I think I would have like $1 bazillion, because I spent an unhealthy amount of time creating custom fields, which is why I was asking, how many custom fields do you have in your Jira instance? Because believe it or not, custom fields is something I do 10 times a day, every single day. I try to limit it, right? As I mentioned, my preference is to be as default and repurpose or reutilize the existing fields in Jira. But every once in a while, we need custom fields. So if you click on this custom fields here, you're going to be taken to the custom fields. Now, a couple more things for you to consider. These custom fields are only for company managed projects. If you're in a Jira team managed project, then this doesn't apply to you because all the custom fields, even though you still can't have custom fields in Jira in a team managed project, they're contained to the project and they're not in this global area. That's number one. Number two, the custom fields here, there's a lot of different types. So you just can't come in here and go, oh, I'm going to make a custom field. Like you got to do a little bit of homework, right? As I'm going to show you in a minute here, when you create a custom field, right? And this one has 195 custom fields. So in case you guys were wondering, a little sidebar, in case you all were wondering, like, where's everybody getting these numbers from of like 7,500, right? 1,500. Well, if you go to the screen right here, it will tell you how many custom fields are in your instance, and that's the number I was looking for. So in the chat, if you want to participate, right, if you're following along, what's that number? How many custom fields do you have? I'm really, really curious. Right now, I think 7,000 is the number to beat, although I think Brian's almost 5,000 is a much more realistic number. But yeah, let's let me know in the chat here how many custom fields. So Sean only has 42. So I think Sean went in and deleted. Sean must have gone in and deleted the custom fields or the extra fields that ship with Jira because there's definitely more than 42 custom fields in there. This is a pretty pure Jira, and I think maybe 170 is like the default number. So yeah, we got some numbers falling in here. Annie's got 257, Carrie's got 328, Jennifer's got 249, Hayes got 74. So yeah, so these are some more manageable average numbers. Again, I think 500 is a lot, but it's interesting to see everybody's got. Justin's not trolling me with the 7,001 here. So, all right, folks. So a couple more things that you got to know about custom fields. Once you create a custom field, you can't change its type. I'm going to talk about types in a second here, but once you create a custom field, you can't change it. You can rename it all you want, although I'm going to caution you against that, but you can't change the type. All right. And so we'll talk about these details here in more detail, but just kind of giving you like some off the top pointers, right? Like company managed only, you can't change the type. You kind of need to know, you need to do a little bit of homework. And so I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So the first thing we're going to cover though is how do we create a custom field? And then I'm going to come and explain what we're seeing on the screen here. So how do we create a custom field? Well, it's very easy. You click on this custom field button up here in the top right corner. And when you click on that, you're going to get a modal that pops up. And these are going to be the options. So there's a couple of different things you got to know. There's standard, there's advanced, and then there's all, which shows you both standard and advanced. I like to stick with standard. 99% of all the custom fields that I've ever made, they're all standard. Every once in a while, I go to an advanced one, but that is every once in a while. But out of the thousands and thousands of custom fields that I've created over my career, 99 of them have come from, or 99% of them have come from this style or this type of custom field. So what's available? So we have quite a lot. So there's a lot, but there's also not a lot. But the first one is checkboxes. And so what checkboxes does is don't confuse checkboxes with checklist. I think a lot of people confuse the checkbox with the checklist, but it's not the same thing. But the checkboxes is literally just that, right? So you present the user with a bunch of options, just how it looks here, option 1, option 2. And what makes the checkboxes unique is that they're multi-select, right? So you can check one, you can check none, or you can check all of them or any combination of them, right? And so this is a cool little visual way of letting people pick from a variety of, basically a multi-select, if you will, that looks more like a checkbox. So it's really more of an aesthetics thing. We'll see multi-selects down below, but this is what checkboxes does. Now, date picker and date time picker, there is a distinction here between the two. Date picker just gives you the date. So whatever the calendar date it is. The date time picker gives you that calendar option. Plus, if you look right here, you also get a time element as well. If I have to pick between the two, I almost always go, I would say 8 times out of 10, I go with the date picker. I hardly ever go with the date time picker, mainly because I'm not too caught up in the time aspect of it. I mainly care about dates, right? A lot of us, when we're looking at like, hey, projected completion date or projected or forecasted development start or something like that, right? This is going to be the date. You're not really particularly, oh, am I going to start at 7:15 a.m. on the 5th? Like that conversation is usually a little bit harder to have. But are we starting on the 5th of November, right? That's a better conversation, that or more realistic conversation. So I would go with date picker, mainly because the UI will kind of fuss a little bit if you don't put a time in it. So pick date picker. If you have to choose, pick the date one, not the date time. But again, your requirements, you pick you. But I would go with date picker. As we scroll down, we have labels. This one, I don't understand why this one exists, but essentially, we have a labels field inside of Jira. That's a default field. I absolutely hate labels. And in fact, most of the time when I'm creating a custom field, it's because I'm trying to avoid using labels. And so it's interesting that we also now have a custom field of the type labels, which further exacerbates the problem that I'm trying to avoid. So I would recommend to you avoid this one, but just know that you can create a field, a custom field, call it whatever you want at this point, but it will behave like labels. But again, labels are usually a non-starter for me anyway, so I find it hard for people to want to create or use that. Number field. This right here is the low-key OP field in Jira. Number fields is extremely overpowered. If you use the number field, there's some restrictions, a lot of restrictions. You can only put numbers in it, obviously by the name. It does accept floating points, so that means you can put a decimal in there, but you can't put like dollar signs. So if you're trying to capture finances inside of your Jira, use a number field. The number fields are very, very, very powerful. I don't think it can do hex values. I don't think you can put any letter, but we can try, Sean. We can definitely try looking at a number field and putting a hex value in there. But I can't. I last time I used it, I don't remember if it accepted A, B, C, D, E, or F. But it definitely doesn't like letters, and it most definitely does like numbers, right? But a lot of people try to put like a dollar sign or a percent in there, and like it won't. So it's just a straight number, right? So but it's overpowered because you can do a lot of arithmetic with these number fields. So if you, in case you didn't know, using automation rules and you have these number fields in Jira, you can do basic math. You can add, multiply, divide, take the ceiling, right? Take the floor to the absolute value, right? So there's a lot of powerful stuff that you can do with this number field. And so if you're not using number fields, I highly recommend you explore that one because it's a very powerful field again, but low key, like not a lot of people know that it's so overpowered, but low key OP is going to be the new tagline here. Do you know when we have a hierarchy with a field with 3 levels? So we haven't gotten there yet. So Zocatelli, you're getting a little ahead of it, but yes, we will talk about cascading in a second. But to answer your question now, Zocatelli, I haven't heard of anything from Atlassian. Um, it is unfortunate. I do wish that we had the ability to do cascading beyond just 2 levels. I kind of wish that they just gave us the freedom, but nothing that I've seen on the roadmap. Sean, I know you're a little bit more connected, but if without getting in trouble, Sean, let me know if you know of anything. But I haven't personally heard of anything on doing cascading beyond the 2 levels that you can do today. But we'll come back to that. Paragraph. So the paragraph is an interesting field. This is basically a big giant text box. When you use a big giant text box, yeah, nothing without an add-on. So there's your answer, Socatelli. So when you use this paragraph, it's just a big text box where you can type in a lot of characters. It supports rich text. This is very key. We'll talk about field renders in the second half of this training, but we will revisit this paragraph thing and talk about field renders. And if I forget, somebody remind me in the chat because I have a very forgetful mind, and this is not scripted. So paragraph is just a big giant box that you can put text in, but you can change the render in the field configuration, which we'll look at again, and you can change it to be so you can add like bullets and numbers and make items bold and whatnot. So a couple people here, by the way. So where was it? Socatelli, we have a couple people. If you have JSM, so this is not always available to everybody, right? But if you have JSM, we're getting a couple recommendations from the chat here for you to use assets. So if you do have JSM Premium, this might be an option for you where you can and potentially create these cascading ones. So, all right. Then we have rated buttons, which is basically like the checkbox, except instead of an and where you can select all the options, is an or. You can only pick one option, right? So you're kind of forcing everybody into a single option because it's a radio button, and it behaves just like a radio button in a website where you just pick a button, and that's the only option you can pick. And then we have the select list. So we're gonna have a couple of select lists. We have 3 of them actually. In order of my preference, the single choice select list, that's the one I use 1,000 times over. Okay. Most of the time that I'm creating, heck, if I'm creating a custom field, remember I mentioned I made like thousands and thousands of custom fields. I can comfortably say like 1,900 of the custom fields that I've made out of 2,000 have been a select list single choice. This is by far the most popular one that I've had to use. Might not be for everybody, but in the chat, what is the most popular custom field type you have in your Jira? Let me know in the chat. I'm kind of curious, but select list, if I had a vote right across all the instances of Jira that I've ever managed in my career, select list single choice is the most common one. But I'm curious in the chat, which one of these that we've been covering is the one that you've used the most, right? But let's start with cascading because it's at the top. And so the cascading one, what it does is it's very self-explanatory here. You set some values, right? You set like values A, B, C. And then what's unique about this one is depending on what you pick, A, B, or C, then the second level will appear and it's dynamically altered based on the values from A, B, or C. So if you pick like A, then X, Y, Z will show. But if you pick B, 1, 2, 3 will show. And if you pick C, it'll be like M, N, N, O, P or something, right? So you can alter dynamically that second part based on your first selection. Now, again, the restriction is, as you saw here, as we're talking with Zogatelli, is that it's only 2 levels. You can't do more than 2 levels. So that's a very unfortunate thing, but it's still pretty powerful. I avoid it though, because when you're doing JQL and when you're doing automation rules, it gets a little wonky, but use it sparingly. Also, it's not a supported field. If you're using advanced roadmaps or your jar, it does not like cascading lists. So leave that one out of your list if you're heavily dependent on the jar. The multiple choice and the single choice here are basically the same thing, except the one lets you pick a lot of values and the other one only lets you pick one. But like I said, select list, my most popular one. And judging by the chat here, Hayes says select list. We got a couple people select list for us from Lori, right? So definitely a popular choice here is the select list, right? Single choice select list is the one I'm always picking. Like 99% of the time, if I have to make a custom field, it's going to be one of those. So as you can see, quite a few people are using that select list. So I'm glad that I'm not the only one. I thought it was a little crazy there for a few minutes, but I'm glad I'm not the only one. Now we're almost done looking at these. We have the short text. So this is just going to be like your summary. It's going to be like the paragraph, but it's much smaller. I think there is a limit. I don't know what the actual limit is, but it's a lot of characters still, but it's condensed. And most importantly, is usually on that far right side, which we'll talk about again when we go into Jira. Then we have a URL field. I highly recommend you do this because if you're going to put a URL in there, like maybe you don't have your Bitbucket or maybe you don't have your source code repositories connected, or for whatever reason you're not following best practices and you still want to stick a URL somewhere, right? You can like put the actual URL and it's clickable. It's a hyperlink, so then it takes you somewhere. Otherwise, if you just put like a text box, if you do the short text, you'll have to like copy the text and then put it into your browser, but the URL will honor it and render it like a URL so you can click on it and go somewhere. And then finally, we got the user picker, single user. And the user picker here is to basically, if you wanted to like set like your QA person, or like you wanted to call out the tester for a story, well, you know that we have the assignee and we have the reporter, but if you wanted to explicitly call somebody out, you can use this user picker to start adding or be able to essentially pick from a list of users, and it augments the assignee and the reporter. So those are the main ones, right? And so I just covered the main ones. On the advanced, I don't want to spend too much time on the advanced, but I will tell you that over here, we do have the ability to do version pickers, which are popular. But the most common one that I use is the user picker multiple users. So if you wanted to do like pick a bunch of people to be like approvers or something, right? You can definitely use this multi-user picker so that you can add more than one individual into an assignee, basically like multiple assignees, if you will. The rest of them I never really touch. There's a group picker that's very similar to what we just talked about, but the problem with that one is you need to know the name of the groups. But if you wanted to do, again, a multi-person assignment, that multi-user or the group picker are the two that I usually come in here for. But all the other ones, I don't really touch all that much. And then if you're using JSM, there's all this asset stuff as well that are going to be in here. So you do get a couple of asset related items in here. All right. So with that said, I'm just going to stick to standard, and I'm going to keep walking you through the steps, and we're just going to create a select list here. And when you pick a select list, right, because again, it's the most common one. You can see that with evidence in the chat. But when I click next, you're going to name it. So we're going to call this one. So we already have Sarah's special field. I'm going to go Sean's special field. And then, sorry, Sean, but you're my favorite person in the chat here, so I got to go with you. And then you put values. So here's where you can start putting like option A. Oopsie. Oops. Okay. One little bug that I see, and I should really report this one to Atlassian. Every once in a while, if you keep this open for too long, it won't register. So I usually start all over. I usually like do a refresh. I kept that window open too long as I was describing all of the things, right? So you create this custom field, click it again, start all over, because sometimes it just won't save. So I'm going to start all over here. I'm going to go Sean's field, and then we're going to go option A, option B, and option C. Now, you can reorder these, so you can move these out of order, but in general, as you type them in, that's the order they're going to be saved in. And you can always change the values. I'll show you how to edit custom fields in a minute. But just know that if you have to put in a lot of custom fields, there's a cheat code. There's a cheating, well, not really cheating, but there's a different way to add like 1,000 values. All right, is that an admin session? I don't think so, Lori. It's usually just here when I hinder too long, but I've never seen admin sessions inside of Jira. I've seen admin sessions in Confluence, but not so much in Jira. All right, so once you click the next button, right? Once you put the name, once you put the values, then you're going to be taken to where do you want to associate this one? And this is where you do have a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Because when you go create your custom field, you should know where it's going to land. And so Jira is going to present you with all the screens that are available. And if you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 screens, you're going to be scrolling for a very, very, very long time, right? So what I like to do is I like to just take my scroll bar and go all the way to the bottom, especially because I'm very unprepared. I don't always prepare for this, right? I don't, and I have a horrible memory. So I don't always remember what screen I want to put my field in. So I just usually just shortcut all the way to the bottom, click the update button. The field is created, but nobody can see it. And so what I'll do next is I go into the project and I pull it into the screen, which we're going to do. But I want to continue talking about custom fields here because we're not quite done yet, right? So when I type in Sean, you'll notice that I have Sean's field here, right? And so I want to spend a couple of minutes of like, okay, so what are we seeing here? So number one, we have the type, right? Well, number one, we have the name, obviously, that's a given. But number two, we have the type, and we're reminded that we picked a select list single choice. And this is where I was telling you, right? And I think this kind of goes with Brian Tito's comment here, right? Like if I wanted to make or change it, right? Maybe we're like, hey, I didn't want single, I want multi-select. I want to be able to pick 2 or 3 at the same time. You unfortunately have to delete the field, right? You have to click on these ellipses over here and then move it to the trash and basically start all over. It would be awesome if there was a way to just edit that type, but unfortunately that is not a feature of Atlassian right now. Now, Justin says, I have issues where I create a custom field and then it starts showing up on every screen for every issue that I view. That I've never seen, Justin. I would assume then that you selected all those checkboxes, right? But it shouldn't. It should not. I've never seen that phenomenon happen, ever. That's weird. You'll have to show me one day. I've never seen that happen. All right. But anyways, so this is the type, and again, it's immutable. You can't change it. Once you pick it, you picked it. That's it. It's game over. You've committed to it. So this is why I'm telling you at the beginning, before you even create that custom field, go get better requirements. Go find out, and you got to fish, right? Because people don't know. Your regular users, they don't know if they want multi-select, they want single select. They don't know if they want cascading. They don't know if they want a checkbox. They don't know if they want a radio button. They don't know if they want a paragraph or a number. They just don't know. They just know they want a custom field to capture something. And so it's your duty as a Jira admin to kind of go fishing and help them make that discovery, right? You got to help them on that journey to figure out, what do you want? Because I can give you anything, but it's not always going to be pretty. And it's going to be more work for you later if you have to do it twice. Now, in Spanish, we have a saying. It's called el huevón trabaja doble, which basically means the lazy person works twice as hard. Yeah. And if you're lazy, right, if you just go and blindly create custom fields, I guarantee you're going to be coming in here, because once the user sees the custom field and they interact with it, they're going to go, oh, I didn't quite want this. I wanted it to look like a checklist or checkbox, or I want to select multiple values. Or if you have multiple values, they're going to say, I just wanted to select one value, right? And so it's going to be a pain. You have to redo all your work. So rather than wasting time and energy and effort, like, just get that requirement up front. And that's why I spent 20 minutes talking about all those different types, because it's so important as a Jira admin that you understand what each of those types are, what's available, because you have to articulate this to the end user, right? Creating the custom field takes me 30 seconds, folks. Knowing what type of custom field to create, infinitely more valuable. So that's, again, why, if you were wondering for the last 20 minutes, why in the world did I just spend 20 minutes going through every type, is because it's so fundamentally important that you understand what each type does, because you need to convince or talk or help or guide or articulate what those types are to that end user, so you don't make mistakes. Now, in the chat, if you've ever had to change the type of a custom field because you got bad requirements, let me know. Have you ever been asked to change, oops, I can't spell very well, asked to change the type of custom field after you made it? Let me know in the chat. I just kind of want to know. Maybe I'm the only one. I'm just validating this chat is a little bit of validating my personal problems that I've had as a Jira admin, and just not knowing if I'm unique or if I'm just common like everybody else. But just let me know. All right, screens and context. This is important here. The screens and context, we're going to go into a detail here in a second. This is the most important part of all of this, is screens and context. Projects, not as much, but projects basically tells you, based on that screen, which project is being used. So it's more of a situational awareness. We don't really change anything. We don't do anything at the project level. All the fields are always managed at the screen, which the screen is then associated to the project. So you don't go in and put a custom field into a project. Again, it's more like situational awareness. And then we have last use. So if you're ever trying to clean up your Jira, sometimes you make custom fields, right? And then you forget that you made those custom fields, and then they never get used. So if you're ever looking for, hey, let's clean something up, you can always just come and look at this no information. Or if it says no information, these are really good ones that you can delete or remove, right? Because then people aren't using them. All right. So looking at this, though, we don't want to click. You're tempted to click on like these items here. Let's talk about editing these items here. But before we do, we got a couple of things in the chat here. So Annie says, more than they should, or ask for the field and then use the labels anyway. Yeah, that's the ultimate troll right there. Rodney says, fun fact, don't use number field for account numbers because it'll show commas. Use text instead. So this is, Rodney, so this is a great fact. But again, these are those things that you got to balance as a Jira admin, because if you want to use numbers and you want to perform arithmetic, so let's just say that you want to sum field A, B, and C, and they're all three number fields, then you can't do that in a text field. Then arithmetic only works on number fields. So you have to sometimes make that sacrifice or sacrificial play, right? Sometimes you have to pick, hey, do I care about doing the math more than I care about the comma showing up, right? And so little things that you'll have to care for. Now, I do wish, with that said, though, Ronnie, I do kind of wish that at last one would give us the option to format the number field so that we so we pick if we do or don't want that comma to show up. But unfortunately, again, you will have to make some tough calls sometimes. All right, so going back to edit. So let's just say that we want to edit Sean's field, right? Let's just say we don't want this parenthesis. And the reason we don't want this parenthesis is because one pro tip, right? If we're kind of following on the fun facts, let me give you a pro tip, right? If you intend, if in your mind, and you can kind of see the future a little bit, if in your mind you're like, hey, at one point, at some point, I am going to do an automation rule, or I'm going to leverage this field in an automation rule, and specifically we're going to do like that arithmetic. My pro tip, the biggest pro tip I can give you, if you want to avoid like the massive amount of headaches that I've had over the years, do not put special characters in your field names. So avoid something like this parenthesis here, apostrophe. Sorry, English is not my major, right? Avoid this little apostrophe here because it will cause all kinds of havoc in your automation rules if you ever try to do that. And so let's just say you want to edit it, right? Well, you can come in here. You'd be tempted to click on it over here, but you can't. Or I mean, I guess you could over here if you click on this edit one, but out of creature of habit, I always go, whoops, I went too far back. Out of creature of habit, I always go to these three dots over here and I click on the edit details or the context values, right? So there's three dots over here. This ellipses is going to be like your best friend when it comes to custom fields. So we're going to click on edit details. And when we go in here, this is where we can update the field, right? So I can just go Sean's field. You can add a description, although, well, I guess people do say it. So if you add a description here, right, this description, what happens here is this value, now keep in mind, this is global. So this description here, when you hit the create button, it will show up like this. It shows up underneath the field inside of Jira, but it is global. So you can't put the description per context. We'll get into that in a second, right? But this description is going to be something everybody's going to see. So keep that in mind. Click update when you're done. And another huge pro tip that I can give you, right? If you ever rename a field, right? Listen to me very carefully. If you guys are multitasking, this is the part where you're going to want to stop multitasking. You want to give me the next 30 seconds of your attention. If you ever rename a field, you're in hot water, okay? Renaming a field, especially after it's being used, right? Like all these fields that have no information, they've never been used, none of this applies. Nobody cares. But if you have a field that has been used today, yesterday, 15 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, right? 13 hours ago, right? If you have a custom field that you are actually using, right? And then you go and rename it, you're asking for a world of trouble and a world of pain because that custom field, if it's already being used, you're not going to lose any of the values. The data doesn't change, right? You're just renaming it. But any JQL, any filter, any dashboard, any automation rule that was referencing that old name is now broken, right? Because essentially Jira's not smart enough to know that I've been renamed. And so it's a very, very huge problem. So I would say rename custom fields under extreme situations. Fight back if you can, because renaming that custom field is going to bite you hard, very, very hard. And so you want to be very, very careful, very, very mindful that renaming a custom field may bring a lot of extra work for you. So just little food for thought because it's very easy for the end user to go, oh, I meant this one to be plural. Can you add an S? Very harmful, right? Very, very not. I'm trying not to do the demure thing, right? But very harmful, very, very harmless. Sorry, very harmless, not harmful. Very harmless request of like, oh, I wanted it. Can it be employee types instead of employee type? And if you've already used it, right? If you've already used it everywhere, then it's just going to cause all kinds of problems. So I always push back in that specific case because, again, the juice is not worth the squeeze there. All right. So that's renaming the field. Again, very careful there. But what if we want to add more values? What if we want to add more values or edit the value names or just delete a value, right? Well, when we go into Jira, right, again, custom fields, you want to find your field. You can click on these three dots. You would be tempted to edit details, but that's not where you want to go. You're going to want to click on context and default value. And when you click on that, then we're going to see a bunch of text, right? So this can be a little bit overwhelming, but let's stay with me here for a second. Depending on what you want to do, right? If you want to just add values, then you're going to come down here to the edit options and you're going to click on that. It's going to take you to a new screen where you can do a couple of things. We can add option D, right? So we can add option D, click add. And then when you're done, man, my thing's slow. When you're done, click done. Okay. That's how you add new values. To rename a value, you're going to click on the edit over here. So let's just say we wanted to call it option C instead of option C, we just wanted to call it option C with the lowercase. So you want to click on that edit button to change that. Now, again, this now you're entering dangerous territory though, right? Because not only did so we didn't let's just say we didn't rename the field, but now we renamed the value. Again, values are referenced in your automation rules. Values are referenced in your dashboards. Values are referenced in your filters. So when you change it, when you change the value, that old value is gone. And Jira, I don't understand why Jira is so dumb here, but Jira is basically like blind and going like, I don't know. I don't know what happened, right? And so this is a problem, right? This is a huge problem. So whenever you rename an existing value, you again have the potential to break things downstream, and you just got to have the foresight to know that that happens. I am unfortunately a very lazy Jira admin at this point in my career, and I just tell people, nope, 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 nope. I'm not gonna work. I've already been burned too many times, right? I already have all the scars about all the times that I've been burned by this renaming, that I just tell people, no, 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 right? And so that's how you rename your fields. But again, be careful. It's easy to rename at the beginning when you don't have a whole lot going on. But a year, 2 years, 6 months, even 6 months later, it's like a pain, big pain. Now, these options are all in alphabetical order, but sometimes they're not, right? So you can actually move them up and down. So there's these little arrows, so you can move the fields up in order, or you can move them down in order. So you can go and change the order, right? And so what this does is when your user actually goes to use that field, you can manipulate the order in which those values are shown. Now, if you created your field and then like 6 months later somebody asks you to add like 10 more values, they're going to be out of order, right? They're going to be at the bottom. And so you can always just click on sort options alphabetically here. And this is the best practice that I do, is I always just put them in alphabetical order, because trust me when I tell you 6 months from now, someone's going to ask you to add more values to that custom field, and you're going to have some pain, right? You're going to have some problems here, because you're going to essentially have to reorder everything, and you're moving things, and you can move the spots. You can pick a specific spot and kind of get it just right, but you're always going to be off by one because the numbering doesn't work the same. So just always, as a best practice, just sort alphabetically, and you'll thank me later. Okay. So once we have that, the other couple things that you can do is disable or delete the fields. Disabling is easy. You just hit disable, and basically Jira puts a little bit of tape over that value and goes, nothing to see here, folks, right? Everything's still retained. Everything's still there. The any issues that has value of option A, they're still there, but nothing got deleted. They're just not visible, but they're under the hood still there. The more drastic one, and the one people always usually want, is the delete. They just want to get rid of the value. Well, to delete a value from a select list, or from any of the other ones that have this option to add options, you must delete, you must transfer anything that's in that value. So if you have 20 issues that are referencing option A and you want to delete it, Jira's going to go timeout, timeout. You got to do something here, buddy, right? You can't delete a value that is being used. So you will need to do like a bulk edit, transfer everything to a new value, and then when it's empty, then delete it. So again, little problems, little nuances that you got to know, but just know that those exist. All right. And so with that said, I think I covered everything in this particular section. So I'm going to click on done, and we're going to move on to context. So context is one of another low key OP, if you will. Contexts are very, very powerful, almost like the number fields. Obviously, we're talking in a different context now, no pun intended. But contexts are very, very powerful. So let's talk about context. But first, we got a question here from Rodney related to changing field names. Use the picker in rules whenever possible instead of the JQL. That way, when the field name changes, it'll auto change in the rules. So yes. So great advice here, Rodney. I didn't even know about this one, right? But we'll have to take a look at what the picker means. But good tip there. Justin's got, there's no way in a form to call a custom field more than once, correct? That is correct. So if you're using like a JSM form, you can only in that particular form, you can only reference that particular custom field once in the entire form. So if you have like dynamic logic and conditions where you're displaying certain fields based on a pre-selection, right, then you're stuck. My advice would be create multiple. My advice would be create most section specific custom fields with the same values. It's a crappy way, but that's how you do that. It's a little bit duplicative, but they have to have unique names, right? And so that's how I work around that problem. All right, so now let's talk about context. Or actually, before I do context, because context is kind of hard, or not hard, but it's an advanced topic. Let's talk about this default value. So when you go to when you go to create an issue, you'll notice that a lot of these are empty usually, but like priority is already set to critical, right? But these values, right? Like if I look at Sarah special field, you see how there's values A, B, C, D here, but notice how it's empty, right? There's nothing in there. Well, you do have the option to set the default value. And so what that means is and we'll go to Sarah's, we're just going to change over to Sarah's field real quick, just to kind of, since I already have that example in there, right? So when I go to Sarah's special field and I go into the context and default value here, and if I go to edit default value, right? Now, remember, just for reference, when I go down here, notice that it's empty, right? So the default value allows me to pre-select an option for you. And so I'm going to do B as the option. So now when I hit the create button and I go to Sarah's, notice that it's already preset for B. And so this is, again, a business requirement. You got to talk to your team to figure out, is this what you want? Is this the intention there? Because this is, again, something that you got to negotiate with your users. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, though, we'll take a look at right now when I talk. Let's go to context now, though, because I'm not sure if the default value is global or if it's context specific. So I would think that it's context specific, but let's confirm that by now talking about context. So what do I mean by context? So context is easy but hard to understand. It's really easy, though, if you just bear with me for a minute here. So let's just say we have Sarah's special field, right? We have the values of A, B, C, D, right? For this project, mobile, that's what we want that field to show. But let's assume that another team, this Kanban demo completed issues, they also want Sarah's special field. It's not in here, but let's just assume they want to see it too. But they don't want values A, B, C, and D. They want X, Y, Z. Well, you would be tempted to create another custom field called Sarah special field with the values of X, Y, Z. But folks, this is how we end up with 7,000 custom fields. You don't want to do that. You have something very powerful in Jira called a context. And the context, what it basically does is based on some conditions, and it's very limited, right? It's either based on issue type or based on project. That's pretty much it, right? But based on one of these two conditions, I can show you different values. So I'm gonna go like Kanban Sarah here, right? And I'm gonna leave the any issue type. I don't care the issue type, but for the Kanban project, and you can select multiple ones. If you hold your control key, if you hold like your command key or your control key or one of your keys on your keyboard, you can do this where you can select multiple ones, right? You can select whatever project you want. Then you can come down and click add. And so when you do that, notice that, okay, so yeah, so it is context specific. So notice that we'll have Kanban Sarah. And so what I can do now is I can go in here and add options. I can do X and click add, Y, click add, and then Z, right? And so when I do that, notice that when I hit the create button, Sarah special field still has B and it's still A, B, C, and D. And no, there's no save button or anything like that. So I don't have to worry about that, right? But these values exist now, right? These X, Y, Z exist, but it's only going to exist in that project of Kanban. So if I go to the Kanban, well, actually, before I do that, as we end this, you know what, folks, I kind of lied to you. We are not going to talk about default or field configurations at all. You have to come back November because I did not think that custom fields, that there was this much to talk about custom fields, but boy, oh boy, are we like, we're deep into the custom fields now. So what I'm trying to say here is, right, so you can do this so that you can essentially have same field, same name, but different options based on different business requirements. So keep that in mind. This is a trick up your sleeve here that makes your job as a Jira admin way, way easier and helps avoid having, again, 7,000 custom fields. All right, Zagateli says, for me, this box is where we select projects is really bad. Where we select the projects is really bad. Yeah. So one little pro tip here, I kind of glanced over it and I just wanted to let you know. if you come in here, right, and you have Kanban already pre-selected and you want to add another one like design, if you do what I just did, which is click on design, Kanban got deselected. So you just broke it. You just broke it for Kanban. So you have to hold that control key and select the other ones, even though you might not be able to see them, because if you have 500 Jira projects, they're all going to be in there. So you just have to hold that key as you're clicking so you don't lose the old values that are already pre-selected. I learned this the very, very painful way where I literally almost cried. And so that was that. Locatelio says, if we had a box on the left with all the projects and one on the right where we can see, yes. Yeah, kind of like the issue type mapping, that would be really, really good, right? Where you can kind of do that map. I think that would be very powerful. But yeah, so, but the pro tip, Zucatelli, is just hold that control or command key and you'll be able to essentially be able to, not lose those values, even though you have a lot of them in there. All right. So now let's just get out of here because in the last couple minutes that we have left, I just want to show you. Okay, so now that we've done a custom field, I've exhausted everything, but Sean's custom field doesn't show up anywhere. We're like, uh-oh, how do we get Sean and or Sarah's custom field to show up? Well, let's go into a project. So we're going to go into the project. I'm going to go to this Kanban one so I can knock two birds off with one stone, right? And in this Kanban demo one, I'm going to come down here to project settings. And again, this is that chicken and egg situation. You don't have to go about this. When you create the custom field, you see all the screens and you can make your selection there. But again, I always forget what's the name of the screen because the screens don't always have the name correct. So I like to do it this way where I go into the project settings, I go to screens, right? And then I'm going to pick for my screen, the screen that I want for that issue type. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to add Sarah's special field and I'm going to add Sean's field as well, right? And so when I do that, that's it. That's all you got to do. There's nothing special. But now watch what happens. When I hit the create button and I go down to the bottom, we have Sarah's special field. But in the chat, okay, I'm not going to show you here. In the chat, what should I expect to see? A, B, C, D, or X, Y, Z? What do you think I'm going to see? What will Sarah's special field show? Is it going to show A, B, C, D, or X, Y, Z? What do y'all think? What should it display? I'll give you guys a second here in the chat. Be interactive here. Jennifer says X, Y, Z. Who agrees with Jennifer? Anybody else want to vouch with Jennifer? Anybody on Team Jennifer? So we got Raymart here on Team Jennifer, where we got XYZ. Anybody want to put some money in it? Is internet gambling legal? Hopefully, I don't think I should say that. I don't want to get in trouble. But if I was a betting person, I would be betting with Jennifer and Raymart because yes, XYZ is exactly what we're gonna see, right? So if I hit the drop down, XYZ is what's there because I did the context. Now, for proof that I'm not crazy, if I switch it back to mobile and I go to Sarah's field, it still says A, B, C, and D because of that context, right? So this is how powerful those contexts are, right? And so Carrie, definitely Carrie and Guayame. Oh boy, sorry for butchering your name. Go back and re-watch this part, right? Because that context, when I created that context, that's what allows me to do that dynamic altercation without having to create a duplicate field. All right. So we're gonna go to Sean's, right? So go back to Sean's thing over here because I want to show you Sean's field, right? So this is how we also add the field now, right? So when you go to the project and you go to the screen, you just need to add the field. Now you can move these fields up and down, right? So I can move them up over here. And then you'll see when I hit the create button that these fields have moved up in the list. And so you can now see this over here, right? And so that's kind of how they work, right? It's very, very simple. It's not too hard, not too bad, but that's essentially custom fields, right? And so you do this over and over and over. And again, I've done like 2,000 of these, so I kind of have this all memorized. But that's really all you got to know about the custom fields. I think they're powerful, they're easy. If you're in a team managed project, just real quickly, just because I hate team managed projects, but you can see that I spent an entire hour talking about custom fields for a company managed project. This is why people love team managed projects, because if you're in a team managed project, oops, I'm in a service project, but oh well, it's the same thing. And you want to change or add a custom field. Oh boy, maybe it's not the same thing. I need to go to a team managed, not not a service management project. And so if you go to issue types and you pick your issue type, on the right, you have the ability to create a custom field. All you gotta do is like drag and drop, give it the name and give it the values, and you're done. And that's it. There's none of these context things. There's none of this reordering, and like all that is gone, which I think takes the fun away. That's why I'm like, I don't do team managed projects, because if you have a team managed project, then you're not, in my opinion, hot take, you're not a real Jira admin. So NER says there's an issue I'm voting and waiting for. You can't use different contexts for the same project. Oh yes, yeah. So what NER Oversoft here is saying, like, so once you pick that context, it's you get one context per project. So you can't change it. Like the story can't be different than the bug. They're essentially going to be the same. And so that is a problem and a limitation. And I wish that last year would change that too. Any RSoft, if you want to link that Jack over in the chat here, maybe we can go in and vote on it. You got 84 people to help you out. All right. So folks, that's pretty much it. Again, I failed you. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but next month, when you come back, we'll cover those field configurations a little bit better, and we'll actually talk about them. But just want to remind you here, if you want to take your skills to the next level, there's a couple of options, right? So number one, follow me on LinkedIn. I do accept connection requests. So if you want to follow me or connect with me, just send me a message. Tell me that you took the class. I'll be more than happy to accept you. So go ahead and scan that QR code and follow me on LinkedIn. Do subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the Jira Life. It helps us tremendously, right? We're trying to grow this community. So if you take a second here to subscribe to this channel, I would be eternally thankful. But I also have a tech tutorial. So right now I'm doing a Jira duty. So I'm just answering Atlassian community questions. So if you want to just kind of join us every single Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we are just, me and a couple friends, we just get together and we answer Jira questions. So if you ever have any questions, you can just jump in the live streams at 6 p.m. Pacific time and just bring your questions. So, but that's happening over on Tech Tutorial. So make sure you go subscribe over there. I do have some other free courses on Salto. Again, everything's in that QR code. Scan that QR code. I promise you, you're not going to get a virus or anything. It's just a QR code to my link tree. I do have a book that I published too. So if you want to help support the channel, I have a book that you can purchase. I got a merch store with some t-shirts that are pretty cool. I have memberships. If you want one-on-one training, if you want me to help you with your Jira problems, that's all available there. You can buy an hour of my time and I can help you out and help you solve your Jira problems a little bit more one-on-one, a little bit more personal. I also do have a Jira for beginners. So if you have somebody on your team that's like completely new to Jira, I do have like a Udemy 5-hour course that you can go check out over there as well. And that's pretty much it, folks. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to join me. Again, we'll come back next month. We'll hit up those field configurations and field configuration schemes that we just didn't get a chance to talk about. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.